Hey, what's up guys? It's Alex Espinoza with the Rickey Henderson of YouTube, back with another Rickey Report, brought to you by the Last Dive Bar. Make sure to use their code RickeyBlog at lastdivebar.com. Use the affiliate link down below to help out your boy. All right, let's get to it. So I know this is a baseball blog, but we're going to be talking some politics today because Sheng Thao, the mayor of Oakland, her house, along with 3 other places, were raided today by FBI agents early this morning. Dan Noyes reported from ABC7. He got these photos and these videos. And the East Bay Times also went there and interviewed a neighbor who said that Sheng Thao was living there at this house. And at about 6 in the morning, she heard people knocking on the door saying, "Open the door," something like that. Her place was raided along with Andy Duong, who, along with his father, David Duong, are the owners of California Waste Services, which does Oakland's recycling services. And I guess things were even testier at the house of Andy Duong this morning, because I guess at 4:40 in the morning, neighbors were awoken with, sounds of a flashbang. They saw rifles drawn and like a battering ram at the door. So the scene at Tao's house seemed much more docile, but I guess, I didn't see any photos or videos from the Duong thing. It was at 4:40 this morning, but it sounded like it was a little bit more hostile over there. So it sounds like a big deal. I mean, the FBI's investigating. And this company is also a close partner and major sponsor of the Vietnamese American Business Association, according to the East Bay Times. And if you go to the Business Association website, you'll see the City of Oakland's logo on there, along with California Waste Solutions. And supposedly the Vietnamese American Business Association helped fund an 11-day trip last year for Thao and some other Bay Area officials to Vietnam, where they went to Hanoi and the Oakland sister city of Da Nang. And Sheng Thao even got to meet with Vietnam Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. I hope I'm saying it, Pham Minh Chinh, I think is how you say it. I'm not sure. So he's the prime minister head of the thing. This was in August of last year, and then in September, the prime minister hosted a dinner in hosted some sort of event in San Francisco for Sheng Thao and these officials. And I also thought it was interesting, Danny Glover was part of this delegation. So I don't know what he was doing out there. I mean, I know he's involved in politics. He's from San Francisco, but he was part of this Bay Area delegation, maybe just to add some star power and woo them over.
I'm too old for this shit.
So they were all over there. According to the East Bay Times, the Duongs have been part of an investigation by the city's Public Ethics Commission since 2020 over allegations that they use straw donors or obscure third-party entities to funnel money to city council candidates in past elections. So this started in 2020. This investigation when Thao was still a council member, and she reportedly received money through this scheme, the straw donor scheme, along with Rebecca Kaplan and Dan Kolb, who are still on the council, and former council members Larry Reed and Lynette Gibson McElhaney. So basically, it's like these shady shell companies are funneling money to politicians, and it gets hard to trace, but they're under investigation. And but it seems like this trip to Vietnam last year, it seems like this is kind of, I mean, just from what I'm reading, is kind of what the big deal is. I guess there might have been something wrong or something fishy that went over there, because Stephen Tavares of East Bay Insiders, he reported that local officials have been tight-lipped about the trip since last year. So it's been a pretty rough week for Sheng Thao and the city of Oakland's image. Yesterday on Wednesday was Juneteenth, and at Lake Merritt, I guess there was like thousands of people there, and at the end of the night there was a shootout and like a big fight and like crazy ugly scene with police and stuff like that. And those videos were being shared across social media. And then earlier this week, a campaign that started in January to get Sheng Thao recalled. I mean, her and her camp were initially laughing it off, but earlier this week, they gathered enough signatures to get a recall put on the ballot. So for the first time in Oakland's 172-year history, the mayor and the district attorney, which in this case is the Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price, are going to be on recall in the same ballots. So yeah, Sheng Thao was elected in November 2022, and by then the A's, they weren't exactly out the door. I think it was a few months. So she got elected a few months before the A's made their Vegas announcement in April of last year for the first one, the binding deal agreement. And so, I mean, most of the time the A's were dealing with Libby Schaaf while they were actually trying at Howard Terminal. But I would say, I think Sheng Thao and her office, they did kind of make a mistake, their final negotiation with the A's at the end of this process here when they were negotiating. And The A's initially offered a Coliseum lease agreement of 5 years, $97 million. And that $97 million was kind of like a ceremonial figure because that's how far away the A's and the city of Oakland were when they were trying to get the deal done at Howard Terminal. And it's kind of like, it seemed petty at the time. I even said this. I was like, dude, this seemed petty. Like, get the deal done. Don't, try to be cute about this. And it was also worth noting that the city of Oakland pushed this out to the media, and they said they weren't going to negotiate in public. And then a couple days later, the Sacramento news was dropped. So we heard that the A's eventually dropped their demand or their offer for the lease from 3 years to $60 million. But of course, John Fisher found a sweetheart deal with Vivek Ranadive, his buddy up in Sacramento, where they're going to play it for free for at least the next 3 years. And they can keep their TV deal in Sacramento. It's funny, I actually interviewed Sheng Thao a couple weeks ago at the Ballers opening day. I don't know, not really an interview. I just asked her a quick question, just get a quick statement. And it was, one of those typical mayor statements. But here it is. Here's what she had to say.
It's a very emotional day because it's the epitome of what Oakland is, right? When you have community that comes together with government, that comes together with the businesses, whether private businesses in the city of Oakland, and then the residents and the fans coming together, this is what you can do. You can implement a full-on professional ballpark, here in West Oakland. Mind you, previous to this, about just a year and a half ago, there was an encampment, the largest one in Northern California. This field was unusable at all. We had so much illegal dumping here, and to really see this actually comes into fruition, it's just amazing. It's mind-blowing, and there's no stopping Oakland.
And then afterwards, I actually talked to her PR person, and I got put on a list. I was going to try to have her on the pod. The PR guy's like, oh yeah, we're trying to get her on podcast more, but I guess that won't be happening anytime soon. So, no more Sheng Thao on the pod coming. I guess she would have had an uphill battle anyways with this, just all the optics and everything. But Tavares is saying, like, she pretty much should, if she is involved with this investigation, that she should resign immediately. And if that does happen, City Council President Nikki Fortunato Boss would become the mayor. So that's according to the city charter, and this, I believe this November there's probably be a recall election, and I'm assuming Oakland voters will be able to vote in a new mayor this November. But yeah, Oakland is in a state of turmoil right now, at least optically. It's not looking great. So, but on to some positive Ballers news. I've got to say, it's pretty cool that the Haas family is staying involved with Oakland baseball. So, of course, Walter Haas Jr. is the beloved former A's owner. He bought the team in 1980 and kept them through the 1995 season. And he's the former president and CEO of Levi Strauss. And, of course, his dad kind of helped keep that company alive and made it into a huge institution that we know it as today. So the Haas family is like a Bay Area royalty. They've been around forever in San Francisco, been heavy hitters over here. So two members of the Haas family have recently become investors of the Ballers. And the Ballers, of course, recently announced that they secured about $2 million in funding at a $6 million valuation from 53 individual investors. So I'm assuming that they were two of these 53. And the two family members are Haas's grandson, Jesse Eisenhart, and his second cousin. So the daughter of his cousin, her name is Jennifer C. Haas. And you can see them pictured here from the Chronicles. Carlos Avila Gonzalez got a picture of them at a Ballers game last week. And the Ballers sent out a press release on Thursday with quotes from Haas and Eisenhart. And this is what Jennifer Haas said. I decided to become involved with the Oakland Ballers because my love for baseball and what the Ballers are creating for Oakland. I believe sports owners should be close to the community, uniting diverse groups through sports. The investment is also about supporting Oakland, where my kids went to school and where I felt the city's vibrant spirit. At opening night and the subsequent games I have attended, the positive atmosphere and community feel were palpable. By investing in the Ballers in West Oakland, I am continuing my family's long-standing tradition of community involvement and supporting the Bay Area. So I just think this is really cool. I mean, also I want to share another quote too from Walter Haas's grandson, Jesse Eisenhart. He was also quoted in the release. He said, "I meet fans all the time who have fond memories of my family's involvement with the A's. It makes me proud to see the legacy that my grandfather created. He set a standard for how owners of sports teams can be responsible stewards of such a critical community asset." So I mean, It is cool. I mean, Haas, he really cared. Like, he wasn't in this to make a profit. He wasn't, I don't even know, revenue sharing was a thing, but basically whatever Fisher's doing, Haas was doing the opposite. They averaged almost 3 million fans per game in 1990 and 91. They had MLB's highest payroll in 1991 as well. I mean, the Coliseum, this was, of course, in the wave of that crest of those amazing, probably the coolest teams. And I don't know. I really think it's between that 89 team and the Swinging A's. I mean, the dynasty is hard to beat just because they got 3 titles, and they were really cool too. But I mean, I was born in '87, so I don't really remember the '89 World Series. I honestly think one of my first memories is going out to the middle of the street with my family during the earthquake. I was about 2.5 years old at that point. So I don't really remember the World Series or anything, but I love that era, the Bash Brothers, Rickey, Stu, Terry Steinbach, Eckersley. I mean, that was, Tony Phillips, Dave Henderson. I mean, that was just a cool freaking team, and they are really, really good, So, and I think it's cool how the Ballers haven't shied away from acknowledging the A's. They acknowledge the A's more than the A's. For this investment round, they set the investment minimum at $8,900. The 89 was a nod to the '89 World Series. And, they brought out their mascot Scrappy, who is a nod to the rally possum at the Coliseum. And yeah, I think it's really cool. And then on June 29th, so not this Saturday, but next Saturday, they're going to host, have like Last Dive Bar take over the Raimondi Park and celebrate the Coliseum. So I think that should be pretty cool. And I think it's cool, these A's and Ballers connections, because at the opening night a couple of weeks ago, I also interviewed somebody named Morgan Finley, who was the grandson of Carl Finley, who was the A's GM during the Swinging A's years. And Carl Finley, of course, was the cousin of crazy owner Charles Finley. So basically, his grandpa was the GM, his great uncle, or his, he just called him Uncle Charlie. And this is what Morgan had to say about the Ballers and what they're doing in Oakland.
My worst fear was when the A's went away, Oakland would effectively scatter, and instead it's like coalesced around another team. And that's fucking proof right there. This fandom is here to stay. It will find teams to rally behind because the Bay is that awesome. So I'm actually really stoked on this.
So I think it's really, really cool. And it's also worth remembering that so I guess the Haas family owns Levi's and the Fisher family owns Gap. So if you're an A's fan and you want to boycott John Fisher, buy some Levi's instead. And speaking of the A's, they finally won a game. It was pretty rough coming into this week. They were riding a 9-game losing streak, but they took 2 out of 3 against the Kansas City Royals. And the star of the series for the A's was Zach Gelof. He's heating up. He's hit a dinger. He hit a dinger in each of the 3 games. But Mason Miller also got the save on Tuesday. And in a 7-5 win, J.J. Bleday had 3 doubles in that game. And then Miller also closed out the 5-1 win on Wednesday, even though it wasn't a non-save situation. So, Miller is, he's kind of come back down to earth these past few weeks. I mean, he was inhuman. He was like superhuman during that 18 1/3 scoreless inning streak. I think really it was, he only throws 2 pitches really. I mean, he's kind of messing around with a 3rd pitch, but pretty much it's just his, 102-mile-an-hour heater, his 89-mile-an-hour slider. And that's what something called a splinkler, like a splitter sinker kind of thing. It goes like 98, but when it was just those 2 pitches during that scoreless streak, his accuracy was just pinpoint. He was just pitching it everywhere. I mean, it was really, really beautiful to watch. But, hey, he got the job done for a couple of games here. And the trade deadline is about a month and 10 days away. It's on July 30th. MLB.com published an article by Mark Feinsand. He's MLB.com's kind of like league insider, or one of their league insiders. And he talked to a bunch of anonymous American League and National League executives who are kind of split on whether they think the A's are going to trade Miller or not. Everybody thinks like a contender would love, who wouldn't love to have Mason Miller at the back of their bullpen if you're making a playoff run? But there's just kind of some risk involved because he's had shoulder and elbow problems and he's just a rookie. It's like, how much do you give up to him? And also the A's have 5 years of control, so they're in no rush to move him. But here's a quote that he shared from American League executive. He said, "The return would be massive. You could potentially backfill your system with some solid talent. There is some health risk there for any team acquiring him, and therefore risk to hold him long term. without contending anytime soon, I think they shop but might not sell. So maybe the A's are just going to be listening to offers, but might not send him. You know, he doesn't hit arbitration for, I think, 2 more years. He got this year, 2 more years, and then arbitration comes. So I don't know if the A's are going to trade him. I mean, that would just be like one last gut punch for Oakland fans if the front office did that. But again, the trade deadline is July 30th, so we'll see what happens. I think we got to keep our eye on Mason Miller, Abraham Toro, and Brent Rooker. And then, you know, Thursday the A's actually, they had a chance, so they were trailing 2-0 most of the game. Zach Gelof hit a late 2-run homer to tie it up, and then Bobby Witt Jr. hit 8th inning homer to end it. So, but still, the A's got their first series win since the Marlins series way back in the first week of May. And they got Abraham Toro back after he missed a little bit of time with the shoulder issue, but he's back. And they're going to host the Twins starting tomorrow night, Friday night, where they're going to be giving out the Satchel Paige rocking chair bobblehead. So I think I'll be there as a fan. So just check it out. Also, earlier this week, it's worth noting that the A's DFA'd J.D. Davis and outrighted outfielder Seth Brown to AAA Las Vegas. Davis has had a pretty rough season. He actually beat the Giants in arbitration and was awarded $6.9 million, but the salary from arbitration is not guaranteed. So once the Giants signed Matt Chapman, they released Davis and just had to pay him $1.1 million severance package. So he thought he was going to get paid a lot more money because he was coming off a decent year last year. He had 18 dingers, 69 RBIs, a 104 OPS plus. But and then with the A's, he had 2 dingers in his second game, but he ended up the season with just 4 dingers on the year. And he had a groin injury in like the second half of April that kept him out for a couple weeks. But it's really kind of like the rise of Abraham Toro. Toro eventually became the everyday third baseman. You know, Davis was kind of being looked at first base and third base. And then more recently, the past few weeks, Tyler Soderstrom's really taken over the everyday first baseman role. So, you know, they didn't really have anywhere to put the guy. I mean, he's not a great defender. I mean, I guess you could put him at DH, but he's not. I mean, DH is probably his best spot, but you don't want to be rolling him out there, I don't think, every time. So, I mean, he just had 17 plate appearances this month and 12 ABs, so he didn't really get that many looks. He was slowly fading out of the picture. So, I mean, some team could have eventually pick him up, or, you know, they could, you know, reassign him to AAA if he clears waivers, but for now, he's been DFA'd. So, and yeah, I mean, maybe some team's interested and they'll take a flyer on him and the A's can trade him, but I don't know what's going to go on with J.D. Davis. And same with Brown. I mean, he's really had a pretty steady decline since the past couple of years. I mean, in 2022, he had a career year. He batted .230 with 25 homers, 73 RBIs, and a 117 OPS plus. And he was a much better defender too then. I mean, I've really noticed it the past couple of weeks. He's had a couple of really ugly misplays out in the outfield. His arm strength has really declined according to Baseball Savant. So I think the A's in the field, he's just kind of not. I mean, if he gets a hold of one, yeah, but he like barely gets a hold of one. You know, I mean, he was hitting just 189, had a 306 slugging. I mean, if your slugging looks like a batting average, that's never good. You know, he was outrighted, so that means he actually passed through waivers, and none of the other 29 teams claimed him. And then when he's outrighted, that means he was actually booted off the 40-man roster. So if the A's do want to bring him back, they'll have to purchase the contract, his contract, and then and DFA somebody else off the 40-man roster. So I think the next player the A's should consider doing this with is Aledmus Diaz. He's another veteran who's really struggling. I mean, he was injured for most of the year, but he's just 3 for 24 since he got back. And I don't know, he just doesn't really do anything for you, you know? I mean, he's not great in the field, he's not a great hitter, he doesn't really do anything for you. And the A's I believe the A's are paying him $8 million this year, so I believe he's like the highest paid one of the highest paid players behind Ross Stripling on the team. I don't know, I mean, Zach Gelof's here, they got a bunch of young shortstops coming up. Toro's pretty locked in at third base. Maybe if they trade Toro, they'll have Diaz play more at third base or something, but I don't really see what's the point of having Diaz stick around here. Speaking of money, you got an extra $20,000 because you and your 19 friends can go tailgate at this air-conditioned, I I don't know, looks like a converted shipping container. So I guess the Raiders are offering a luxury tailgate experience at just 20 grand a pop for 20 people. There's going to be 4 of these each game, according to Mick Akers down at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And Las Vegas locally, I hope they were just trolling because I bit the bait. But Las Vegas locally, the admin of the Twitter account tweeted some videos of the trailers and also the following comment with a photo. They said, people said Vegas would never have better tailgating than Oakland, but they were wrong. So anybody who's ever been to Oakland Raiders tailgate knows that's like the greatest. I mean, I know the Buffalo Bills have epic tailgates and people jump through the the chairs or whatever, the tables or whatever in the parking lot. But as far as like a West Coast tailgate, dude, I think Oakland Raiders tailgates were epic. I remember going to those growing up with my dad for good, the good and the bad reasons. I mean, it's just always so much fun, dude. Going to, oh man, that was so great. Just listening to music, smelling the smoke, the weed smoke, the barbecue smoke. Everybody's having a good time. Like, really, like people from all different, I mean, white, black, Mexican, Asian, Indian, like everybody was getting in there at Raiders games, man. It was so much fun. And I also remember I saw my first knife fight at a Raiders game. I was waiting in the line with, I think it was like 13 or 14. It was when the Raiders were playing the Dolphins in the playoffs. I want to say 2000, the first 2000 or 2001. They had a playoff game, and I went with my dad. I was like 13 or 14. We were waiting in line for the porta potties, and some dudes started fighting, and my dad was like, oh. And then the dudes busted out my knife, and my dad's like, all right, let's get out of here. So I didn't see what happened, but I remember some dude getting thrown into the back of a truck. Anyways, man, I do miss Raiders games, man. I mean, classic A's games were great, but Raiders games was like a whole another level, man. The Coliseum transformed into a whole different place, so. Oh man, RIP to Raiders games at the Coliseum. But hey, if you got 20 grand, you can go sit in the air conditioning in Vegas. And of course, we always wrap up the show with a look at what's going on with the Cell movement. And I got to give a shout out to Stephen Layton, who is JVB43 on Twitter, for this really, really cool project. So about a week ago, I was just kind of on Google, and I came across a cool Google map of all the Mexican League baseball stadiums. And then I got the idea, I was like, oh, you should do this for the Cell shirts. So Steven's been posting a lot of, people's photos throughout the season of people in different locations and different countries and everything, and kind of been keeping track. So I kind of suggested it to him. Like, I figured since he had all that stuff, I was like, hey, maybe we should do this for, the Cell movement. So as of Thursday, he's gotten more than 400 photos on there. It's really, really cool. Check it out. So let's take a little virtual look at this map. So here's one that I put on a clothesline in Mexico. And we zoom out a little bit. We can go down and see Todd in Brazil with his little one. Oh, let's go on down to South Africa. There's Allison with an elephant. And all right, let's go to Indonesia. Oh, there's Hal with a bunch of fans. Hal is worldwide. And then in New Zealand, we got this guy. And I mean, look at this. I mean, 6 out of the 7 continents, everywhere but Antarctica. It's really, really cool. I mean, in Asia, check out this guy in Korea at a baseball stadium. I mean, it's a really, really, really cool project. Shout out to Steven. Sometimes when I'm bored or just killing time or whatever, I love to just kind of poke through and see all the photos and everything. So it's really, really cool. Shout out to Steven for doing this project. I think it's really awesome. And it just kind of shows, people always say, there are no A's fans. Like, nah, they're around, dude, and people care. It's just, when they trade away your favorite players every year, for 2 decades, you kind of lose interest, So shout out to A's fans all around the world. Who knows? It sounds like Todd Sarin from the Oakland 68s. We dug up some addresses for like the McMurdo station down in, or whatever it's called, in Antarctica, and I believe he's gonna mail one down there with an explanation. So stay tuned. I think if we get a photo at some point during the season of 2 dudes in Antarctica holding the Cell flag, that would be super badass. It would officially be worldwide on all 7 continents. So, all right, I'm Alex Espinoza. This has been a Rickey Report. Make sure to use my code RickeyBlog at Last Dive Bar. Use the affiliate link down below to help out your boy. And yeah, have a great weekend. And we will be back. The Ballers should be back on Tuesday. And yeah, all right, have a good one, guys.